So here's the jersey, here's the handoff, and here's your ex hard launching their new relationship. Just several days after you've broken up. This is you and the one she told you not to worry about finally getting together after liking each other's photos and DMing jokes, LOL, for years. And I have to be honest, I'm just gonna be a fan here for a second. It stings to watch this a little bit. Let's just call it what it is. This is why people are reacting negatively, because it hurts.
Dude, so I was talking to someone yesterday.
We'll pause it there for a sec, Jess. You keep going.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was talking to a Leaf fan yesterday, and he was just like, he was at some of the games from the Washington series in 2017. I went to 2 of those games. I saw Game 3, Leafs won it in overtime, Tyler Bozak. Game 6 also went to overtime, and they were eliminated in overtime. And we cheered them off the ice. There was a few seconds silence because we were upset that, obviously, we were sad that they got eliminated. We held out hope that there would be a Game 7 there. There was a time where we hoped for Game 7. That's how long Marner's been a Leaf. And we cheered them off the ice because what an effort. What an effort, what a season, what a reason to hope for the future. And we were just saying, if you had gone back 10 years ago and told fans how this was going to go, they would never believe you. The most pessimistic Leaf fan in your life 10 years ago wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah. Yep.
That it would end this way, and it would end so poorly. So his first playoff run with the Leafs ended with them getting eliminated and cheered off the ice when they got eliminated, and it ended with him literally getting booed.
Booed every time he touched the puck.
Every time he touched the puck in his own building.
Seeing Mitch Marner in a Leafs jersey makes me extremely happy. I'm very happy he put it on. No bitterness. I'm happy that he's away from the Leafs because
you mean a Vegas Golden Knights jersey?
What did I say?
You said Leafs.
You said Leafs.
Oh, the Vegas Golden Knights
muscle
jersey.
memory.
Seeing him put that on because the mix didn't work. We should all be happy that the Leafs no longer have this player because we know how it played out now. And I don't think you should be sad. I think you should be very happy for the new era of Leafs because there's finally change and the evidence that we've had for the last 9 years that they need change.
Yeah, I think much like Dave Bolin once saved Brandon Shanahan from himself by signing with the Florida Panthers. Yeah. Mitch Marner saved the Leafs from themselves and saved himself from the Leafs by making this change. And I think, this press conference, he is a little bit lighter. He's always a little awkward in front of a microphone. But let's have a listen to, they just flat out ask him first question here. Why did you want to be in Vegas? And I will tell you when to pause it.
Vegas being the team you wanted to choose.
Well, I mean, obviously the winning regimen they've put up through the last 5 years, really since they've been in the league. Got such a competitive team every year, got such good players here. The living arrangements from talking to Pacioretty and Revo just through the last couple weeks, it seemed like everything was a pretty good fit for my wife and I and our new son. And, the winning aspect of this team really helped in everything as well. And, the great players they have here. So, lucky enough, it all worked out. And, this is where we wanted to be.
All right, pause it there. So that quote right there already, it made some news because I think people misinterpreted it.
Yes. And
he said, talking to Revo and Pacioretty.
Recently. Yes.
But in the last few weeks, and you'll see as this press conference plays out, this has been a flirtation for over a year. And that's okay. You're allowed to do that. And we're going to talk about the effects of that.
Yeah, but it's like if the Leafs had been like, hey, what if we brought in a third? And then a year later, they end up with the third. Because they tried to trade him. They did.
Yeah. Jesse, if you've had anything to add on that one, I mean, it's a short quote, but there are some better ones coming up here. I just want to open it.
I think this is somebody who is benefiting from not being a Toronto Maple Leaf anymore. I think as much as the fans wanted a divorce from him, and I think it was the best for both parties, I think is going to enjoy his time in Vegas more than he ever enjoyed his time in Toronto.
I don't think he'll ever admit it. For at least a year, maybe 2, and as much as 3, I think he hated every moment here.
Yeah, I think he was looking forward to this. I think he's looking forward to being in Vegas, and I think he knows that that's a better life for him than living in Toronto. And I think he came to that realization sometime in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it didn't start that way. Obviously, things came to a point, but this past season, every time the camera and microphone were put on his face, it seemed like an infliction on his body and soul.
Yeah, and the greatest regret amongst everything is that both sides didn't see it earlier. And for the rest of my life, that's how it'll be. And it'll be a shame that Shanahan or Dubas didn't see all of this earlier, and Mitch Marner didn't see it earlier, and that they all could have divorced a couple years before the kids were born.
Well, and I think, Jesse, that's such a great way to put it, because he references that later. But we'll get to the next one here at 54-40. What's more attractive, or what's attractive about the challenge of playing in Vegas? This is about a 1.5-minute answer.
Question. I mean, you want to be in a place where you want to win. That's the whole goal of why we do this. You want to hoist that Stanley Cup. This team has shown that they can do it. I'm lucky enough to now hopefully bring another piece in to help bring it back here. I think we put the most pressure on ourselves as hockey players. That's how we play the game. We want to win every single night. You want to win every battle. You want to win anything you can all the time. Like I said before, this team has, since it's entered the league, really pushed to, push the boundaries and be that winning team. And, that's where I want to be. I want to be in a winning situation. I've been lucky enough that I've been on some very good teams that just, haven't. Sorry, everyone. That's my father, eh? New.
Dad's phone rang.
Welcome to Vegas, eh? Yeah. I've been very lucky to be with some very good teams and very good players. And, unfortunately enough, we just didn't, we weren't able to get over the hump, and that sucks a lot, to be honest. But you got to look past things. We got a new great opportunity here with an unbelievable team, like I've spoken about the last, couple minutes, and we're very fortunate and lucky enough to be here.
All right, stop, pause it there.
Can you tell me how much his watch is worth?
It looks like, because that's a chronograph, and it looks like it might be an Audemars chronograph, I think, which I didn't know they even made them. But if it's an Audemars Piguet, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that properly, those can be $200,000 or more. But I'm not saying that that's what that is. It wouldn't shock me if it was. I'm just looking at the bezel on it, and if you look up Audemars Piguet, they've got that sort of steel with a bolted-on thing. I love watches. If you're
not allowed to make fun of me for birthday.
This is my watch. This was $400 12 years ago, and wow. it's not even technically like it's a Burberry watch, which is not a watch brand. It's just a clothing brand that has a thing on it. So I bought this when I got my first morning show.
Burberry's
none of the hands are moving,
but that is not because there's no battery in it, because it's not
fixed.
Yeah, so a watch like this is what's called a watch. What do they call with this? They call it a
watch.
Where it's basically a brand buys a watch that they just slap a name on, and then they upcharge you. So this is the first watch I bought, and then I learned about watches, and I was like, oh, these are actual watches. Yeah. These are brands that are like, like whenever you see, I don't know, what's a big brand, like a Dolce & Gabbana watch. It's not a Dolce & Gabbana watch. It's, hey, we put our name on this watch so we could charge you a fortune for it. Right. Now, this watch happens to be a well-made one. I just haven't put the batteries in it. But if I could spend my $400 differently, or if I was going in the future, I love this watch, I would buy a watch. And an Audemars Piguet is one of the best watches. It will never lose time. It's an absolute fortune to buy. You should look them up. They're very cool. Now,
that's an expensive piece of item.
I believe it is.
He signed a $96 million contract.
I believe that's what that is. I could be wrong on that, but that is that bezel head, which is the circle around it. Yeah. That to me looks like Audemars, but there could be some watch fanatics in the chat who've got a better look on it. Now, let's move on to one of the quotes that I think people got really pissed about, again, because it's referenced again, and that is the mentioning Revo and Patches, lifestyle in Vegas, And this time mentioning privacy. We'll start at 56-57, Jesse.
It's pretty special. So, like I said, I got lucky enough to talk to Revo and Pacioretty quite a bit, just about everything off the strip, living-wise, the schooling-wise, just how tight-knit the communities are, the privacy-wise in that aspect too. So, yeah, a lot of things just checked our box. My wife and I like to go out and, enjoy ourselves and have nice dinners and stuff like that, and we can still do that going down to the strip, or you can do that in the Summerlin area, and that's something that really dragged our attention.
That one's a little pointed.
Yeah.
That one's I can't go out in Toronto and do anything. And I'm not a fan of that. You can, he's saying it directly.
Okay, so I think it's a Audemars Piguet Royal Oak offshore.
Right.
Audemars Piguet Royal Oak offshore.
Can I just say, if I had a laptop in front of me, how you would scream at me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just letting you know it's $50,000 that watch. If I'm right on the watch, it's $50,000.
You would throw Steve out of the window.
Real?
Yeah, sorry. So
so he went thrift shopping. You're saying?
Yeah. He's eating with us poors. I mean, dude, $96 million contract. He can afford a $250,000 watch.
Yeah,
but
over $200 million in career earnings in contracts Canadian.
Yeah, he'll be fine. Now, so he talked about Revo and patches and that, and he then talked about the privacy. Let's be clear here, and I want to talk about why the privacy aspect might be important to the Marners. Because there has been a lot in the news about players, and I'm thinking specifically Nick Ehlers. Yesterday there was a conversation from Drager on TSN about how Ehlers wants to go to a quieter market because playing in Winnipeg especially, you are you're a god there, but you're also in a fishbowl. That's not a huge city. Yeah. Everybody probably knows where you live.
It's the only team.
It's the only team. You get the Blue Bombers, but
I'm talking major pro sports team.
Whoa!
Out of the 4 leagues that are really significant.
This is Manitoba Moose erasure.
Yeah, exactly.
How dare you?
Because they make so much money. The Moose
probably do.
But
sorry, Milt Stiegel.
You got to remember Marner's. What's happened to him here. And, you've heard sort of some of the basic stories, after the Montreal series, people were throwing Habs jerseys and golf balls on his cottage front lawn.
Is that story out there?
I'm pretty sure it is. Oh. There were people that have thrown garbage on his front lawn in Toronto when, they got eliminated and you played like garbage. So people are literally that is psychotic behavior. Yeah. And then he and his wife, and Tyson Barrie made a joke about this, so I know that this is out there. But he and his wife were held up at gunpoint by somebody who wanted their Range Rover.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a news story. That's not.
And so that's not fan related. That's just being a rich person in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, it wasn't like, hey, 16!
But
your expected goals are garbage. Get out of the car.
But
it was a crime.
From the people I have spoken to.
And they had no idea it was Mitch Marner.
Yeah,
yes, they didn't care. Yeah. From the people I've spoken to, he and his family felt less and less comfortable here, and I think not necessarily the fan behavior, which is wrong and stupid. And by the way, anybody listening to this story, people are like, "Oh, this is the garbage Toronto fans." Listen, I hate to tell you this. Actually, I don't hate to tell you this. Every single fan base that has an intense faction of it will do shit like this.
That's not true.
And it doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm excusing it. It doesn't mean, though, that every Toronto Maple Leaf fan is that.
I am so ready for the mountain of sarcasm to come out of Steve's mouth.
It's not true. Because there was a player who got death threats and people poured, I think it was like cow dung, fertilizer on this player's driveway and front lawn because he had a bad performance. Oh, sorry, that was a player on the Saskatchewan Roughriders of the CFL.
Yep.
People are nuts.
Yeah. You're going to find crazy people in every city. If you live in a city, you know crazy people.
A beer got thrown on the ice in Game 7. And it was, fuck those classless Toronto fans. This is what they do.
When the Red Sox GM traded Devers 2 weeks ago, all of the fans docked his home address on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
Go to this man's house.
And I want to know how that affects the Leafs.
Now, I think...
And Nico, what is it, Nico Harrison?
Yeah.
And, no, sorry. One Leaf fan threw a beer, and it was fuck Leaf fans, they're classless assholes. a lady dumps a beer on Kasperi Kapanen during the Stanley Cup final? You hear a fucking thing about that?
No, I didn't even know that happened.
It happened on national television.
I missed it.
No one gave a shit. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. There are lots of people in hockey media and Canadian sports media who just hate Toronto. They hate Toronto deeply, bitterly, and it might have pushed its way down to its psyche. We're alone. There's a lot of us, but we're alone. They have an inherent bias against the Leafs, and I'll die on that hill.
I think you're
They
right on
hate
that.
this
I don't think
place.
anybody's
They
disputing
hate that team.
Yeah, sure.
They go anywhere throughout Canada. I've had so many pleasant experiences throughout Canada. If you're a Canadian, I strongly encourage you to go anywhere in Canada. I had a friend who said, "Oh, I'm going to Halifax tomorrow." I was immediately filled with jealousy. I was like, "Oh my God, I love Halifax so much." But there are lots of places you can go in Canada, and someone's attitude will change the moment they find out you're from Toronto.
Dude,
They don't like you on principle.
dude, you should have heard what happened when I was on the morning show in Calgary and people found out I was from Toronto. That first week,
and that was it
brutal.
for you for that.
City
Brutal.
slicker.
Let's talk about. Let's go to 58-43, Jesse, because one of the things, and Mitch sort of confirms this in this clip, but I've been telling you for months that Mitch Marner told the Leafs at the beginning of the season, we are not negotiating. He alludes to it here, but we're going through this contract and we're going to free agency. And then 2 days before free agency begins, he doesn't go to free agency. Why does that happen? Let Mitch explain.
It was a wild one. It was unexpected in a way. We didn't know what was really going to happen. I expressed to my agent that, we had a couple teams that we really liked and really wanted to look forward to meeting with and talking with. And, I thought through just speculation, stuff might really start falling around draft night. I think that's when stuff kind of happens, especially with signing trade stuff. So we were kind of just hanging out at home, not knowing really what was going to happen. With a bit of speculation, maybe something might happen eventually. And then, I don't know. My agent called. We kind of got the word on Friday night that something might be going down with Vegas and Toronto, and how that feels to my wife and I. And like I said, this was a spot that was very high on my list, and we wanted to come here, and kind of went back to my agent and said, I'm open to doing this if we can find a way to do it. And a couple hours later, Kelly called me and said that we got a deal going on. So was very happy, very very fortunate. And I don't know, we thought about going to free agency, but this is the place we want to be. We didn't want to lose that opportunity, and we want to join this hockey team.
All right, pause it there. So, this is what this man wanted. It's his right to want it. And I also think it's relevant that a couple of the other teams that were high on his list, like Carolina's name came up because they wanted Mitch. Never did I hear Mitch wanted Carolina. I did hear Mitch wanted Dallas, but obviously with Rantanen and the cap situation, Dallas would have taken him, but it's like, well, you can't fit him.
Champions are built up the right wing.
Yeah, that's
what I learned over the Shanahan era.
And there were probably a couple other teams, but Dallas and Vegas were the front runners. One of the ones that I had heard was Los Angeles, but I think Ken Holland's reaction to that,
They might have been better off.
I think he made the right call. Ken Holland had a really bad July 1st.
Man.
And I think we'll talk about the Kings, I'm sure, but it's a generationally bad run of general managers with that LA Kings team. So he goes to the team that's had a long, sustained thing of success. Now, we'll go to 1 hour, 20 seconds, Jesse, because he talks about how Kelly McCrimmon had been interested in him for a while. And this got under people's skins, but I can sort of understand what he's saying here.
Well, I guess that really kind of hit trade deadline day. I think it was the day. I think the day prior we got offered a trade to
Carolina.
go somewhere else. My wife was 7 or 8 months pregnant at the time, and we weren't really going to go somewhere that was maybe just going to be a short stint. If we were going somewhere, we were going to sign for an extension, raise our child there and grow up there. And then we kind of heard that Vegas might be interested in doing a 3-way deal. from what it sounded like, not much really kind of happened going forward process-wise with trying to work the 3 teams. But that was kind of when we started really talking, saying, well, it sounds like Vegas got interest in us. We have interest in them. That's kind of when we started sitting there in a while, trying to think of it in a way, but not overthink it, I guess. At that time, I was still very committed to playing Toronto hockey. Wanted to focus on just being there and finishing a job there. So I'd say really when kind of the season ended, after the next 2 or 3 weeks, I sat down with my whole family, our agent, and went through kind of the discussions of what stuff could look like, how we can figure this out. And luckily enough, Vegas came with, the deal on Friday. And like I said, we talked about that. This was our first destination we would like to go to. And yeah, it worked out very well.
Leave it there. So, I think people have taken this, and I understand why, to say he wasn't fully committed to playing here. And I think we know that beyond last season, that was the case. He was not committed to playing here. But I think, guys, and we know this, he knew, and his people knew, that Vegas was interested going back to last summer when Toronto did entertain, I said it last year, I think they're going to trade him. Mm-hmm. And Toronto and Vegas did talk, and Toronto wanted Shea Theodore, and Vegas said, go fly a kite. And then at the trade deadline, you have a 3-way deal after the Carolina deals turned down, where Toronto would have got, I think, Rantanen, and then Vegas would have got whatever. Marner. But Vegas did not have the assets at that time. Now, what I would love to know is what assets Toronto or Carolina needed for that deal to go forward.
It was the Carolina side.
Yeah. It was the Carolina.
See what they got back in the Dallas trade. Like, there's nothing Vegas can offer that equals that.
That equals that Logan Stankoven and 2 firsts and 2
exactly.
thirds. So it's a shame that never came together for Toronto, because
Toronto just needed Rantanen. Nothing else.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't think that you can look at Mitch's play last year, and there were really heroic moments. I specifically think about November when Matthews was out. He was unbelievable.
I mean, isn't that the story?
But hold on. 75 assists alone, 104 points or whatever it is. I think that he was not committed beyond that season. I think it's unfair to say that he wasn't committed during, but I also think it's fair to say you can be committed to something and your heart is not in it.
I think,
is that fair?
I think if you know your time at a job is coming to an end, even if you think you're giving your hardest, I don't think that distraction was good for Mitch, and I don't think it helped his play.
No, and distractions kill this guy.
I think in November, it's cool, but come May, April, if one day, God forbid, the Leafs are playing in June, and then they're not, so Mitch never had to face that. But him knowing that I'm leaving this team, I don't think that helped.
You're not beating Marchand when you're thinking about that sort of thing.
And that flirtation started last summer.
Yeah,
he knew about
it. Playing with a clear mind, and he wasn't.
The Kachuk, you're beating one of them, I guess. You're not beating Matthew. You're not beating Bennett and Barkov, and stop. Listen, again, I think...
But is that...
There's the player and the man.
Yeah.
The man was making all the right decisions by his family. I keep hearing him talk about, the thought process, and I'm like, that's just a responsible man, good husband, good, future father, now father. And, but I do hear that, and I'm sorry. It does take a couple percentage points off.
Yeah.
Again, you're giving your best, but your heart's not in it. It's different from I'm inspired and want to do my best.
I'm not under the belief that these athletes are robots.
They're not.
Everything that goes into their life, it can manifest itself on the on-ice performance. Mm-hmm. And Mitch Marner, a person we know who can't handle these things, having that in the back of his mind, I'm docking a few points off of his play because he was 1 foot out the door with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And can I tell you what frustrates me the most about this, because I agree with both of you completely, is that I don't think you couldn't see this coming. And I think this dates back to midway through 23-24. And Jonas Siegel even wrote about it in his article. Anthony Petrelli has referenced it. So many people have said, listen, we started to see and feel and know. And if you go back and you watch those press conferences, my favorite saying ever is the truth has a ring to it. You can tell when somebody is into something, when they're honestly giving it whatever, and you could tell when somebody's over it. And dating back to Brad's first season with like Bertuzzi and Domi and Keefe's last year and whatever, you could tell he was over this.
Yep.
He was over it. And it doesn't really matter why at that point. What matters is what are you going to do about it? And the Leafs choose and continue to choose to do nothing.
Dubas's legacy here is poor, frankly. He was going to trade this player.
He was going to trade him.
He was going to trade this player within
a week, probably.
At least 45 days,
Before July 1st.
Before July 1st.
It might have changed his whole trajectory.
No move clause kicks it. We'll never know.
And that could have been 1-for-1 for Rantanen. Seeing how that whole thing played out, it looks like that could have been on the table.
Although Dubas, he would have been like, I'll get several picks. I'll trade them all down.
Said it for how many years?
2.
And got
well, longer than that, I guess, yeah.
And we got so much shit for it. And here we are. And they got Nick Waugh.
Who I like.
Yes.
I like Nick Waugh.
But also fuck my life.
Yeah, totally.
Like, are you kidding?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you?
This guy spent 9 years here.
The only person who didn't see this coming was the guy in charge. And now we all got to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And
Super stoked. Thanks, Brendan.
And he's got so much money, it doesn't matter if he works again.
Exactly. Yeah, part of that from fucking the union.
Yeah, true. That's actually true too.
That's the story.
So this is the part for me that and I want to just dwell on this for a second, guys, because I think it's really important. With Brad, I have seen Brad Treliving do things this offseason that normal teams do. And you have to forgive us if you're a fan of our team, because our teams never did that.
It feels like they're in the real
Alex Brownscombe from Maple Leaf Hot Stove wrote, when you talk, he did sort of a retrospective piece, which is probably a much smaller version of the gigantic documentary piece you're releasing here in the next few days. And what he said was there was no basis for Shanny and Dubas to pay Mitch Marner what they paid him, but they buckled because they didn't want the hassle. And that to me spoke volumes, and I think it was such a great way of putting it together, spoke volumes about where the Leafs were. Just listen, we've done all the hard work. Don't take this away from my, don't make me do more hard stuff. I only get paid $7 million. And in Kyle's case, I think it was a couple million at the time. Shanny was making $7 million. So almost $10 million combined in that room between those two gentlemen. Please don't make me do hard stuff like negotiate a contract and use my leverage the way that Brad did with Matthew Nyes, with John Tavares, with Steven Lorentz. I know he's a smaller contract, but it doesn't seem to matter. It's like, oh, you want to be in Toronto? Michael Pezzetta, you're going to have to take league min. You want to be in Toronto, Matthew Nyes, you're not going to make $10 million. Mm-hmm. And that is a normal functioning team. What I don't understand, and what will always bother me about this era wasted, Steve, to quote your brand, is why that was allowed to be okay.
And it's not like we were against it the whole time. So what I remember, the numbers were coming out for Mitch in 2019, and they were, for that cap, astronomical.
$13.5 million from or $14 million from Columbus, something like that.
I think it was 12.
Yeah, go ahead, sign that deal.
When McDavid was making, I think had just signed 12.5, and we were like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Draisaitl was making 8.
So the deal was signed, and the justification, so it's 10.893. I'll never forget the number. 10.893. It includes his jersey number from junior. I don't know if they rounded down from 10.9. It ended up going up to 10.904 for some reason. There was some weird cap adjustment. But when he signed it, it was 10.893. And everyone's laughing at the Leafs, going, holy shit, that is so much money. This guy should be making like 9. And there were a bunch of restricted free agents who hadn't signed their contract yet. Mm-hmm. The biggest one and the most direct comparison was Mikko Rantanen. So when Marner signed September 19th, 2019, $65.358 million because he had to get his junior number in there. everyone's laughing because that's so much money. And for as long as it took between Marner's deal on September 19th and September 28th, I was saying, wait till Rantanen's comes out. Wait till Rantanen's comes out. If it's as much as Marner's or close to it, you're going to be sorry. And Rantanen signs for 6 years, just like Mitch did, but it's $55.5 million. It's almost $10 million fewer dollars, and the cap hit is 9.25 instead of nearly 10.9. It's a huge difference. And
made a huge difference, let's be honest.
What was the huge difference in Mitch Marner and Mikko Rantanen's careers so far? Both of them have killer regular season numbers. You might even give the edge to Mitch. Rantanen has had higher scoring seasons, but Marner's, I think,
he's just maybe more consistent. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't looked at at the numbers, but yeah.
Rantanen just mops him in the playoffs. Mops him. Even this year, where like people are like, "Oh, he was disappointing." Like,
I mean, he carried down. Mikko Rantanen was disappointing this year.
Like
he carried them
in the series against the Oilers. But if you look at the points, I would love to know the points he had in the series against the Oilers, and then you put it up against Marner. It's like that's just his like playoff average.
Yeah,
it's just in the Marner era wasted video. He had 9 points.
Rantanen had 3 points against the Oilers this year, or you want to go back?
No, this year.
This year, yeah, 3 points.
Marner had 9 points in a 7-game playoff series once.
That was against Boston, wasn't it?
It was.
I was at the game.
You could. That's half of the series.
I was at the game where he like blocked the puck off his face.
That was 2019.
That was crazy.
2019, they won that game, and they were up after game 1. They were up after game 3. They were up after game 5. They were up after the third period of game 7. Or no. 2019 was one of the worst ones. They lost that one 5-1. They had an opportunity to win in Toronto. They had an opportunity to win in Boston. They lost. 2018 is when he had 9 points in 7 games.
Wow.
That's the peak. Mm-hmm. That's the peak.
It's a shame.
Rantanen, by the way, in the other series against the Oilers when he was on the Avalanche in the 22 season when they won the Cup, a goal every single game in that sweep.
McKinnon. Oh. So he's a McKinnon merchant.
He went 4 for 4 in goals in that 4-game series.
Yeah. And
nothing without Nate Dogg, though, are you?
Yeah. No, like Mitch is not the only disappointing.
No, but this happens to be about Mitch Marner leaving. So
yes, it does. But also, he's the most disappointing, and that is valid.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Here it is. This is producer Drew rage baiting, but with with
he's never done that before.
No, never.
He's never done that
in games 5, 6, and 7. That's 2019 to 2025. Nylander, 20 games played, 8 goals, 8 assists. That's pretty good. You could still argue it's disappointing for Willie, but it is far and away the best because Austin Matthews, well, actually, no, you could argue he's the best because in 18 games, 8 goals, 4 assists. So better goal rate, not quite as much with the points and assists. Tavares, 17 games played, 5 goals, 5 assists. It's not worth $11 million. Marner, 0 goals, 7 assists in 20 games 5, 6, and 7. And the timing matters too. Because his camp. So much of that video has nothing to do with Mitch. It's about his goofball camp of goofballs.
that he's in charge of.
That he's in charge of.
And
He's
pays.
an adult man who pays
And
them.
pays, and yeah,
to
he's
speak for him. And that is a big crux of the video
going to be a
as well.
30-year-old man.
They're his employees. They put the fan base through that nightmare of a negotiation, and he signs his deal. It was 3 years before he scored his first playoff goal under that deal. 3. He didn't score in the 2020 series. He didn't score in the 2021 series, very notably. He didn't score until 2022 against Tampa. Like, the feelings about this player didn't fall out of the sky, and I wish people would stop.
Yes. If there was any success on the ice from the personal standpoint of Mitch or from a team perspective, the narrative's completely different.
Yeah.